Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, with our main topic this morning at the breakfast show. We're discussing today the sustainable social development in Egypt, and to shed more light on this, we have the pleasure to host today Dr. Ibrahim Ghazawy, international relations expert, and also a professor of international law. Good morning, Dr. Ghazawy.
Good morning to you.
Dr. Ghazawy, first, we'd like to know why was it essential to develop the slums and the unsafe areas all over Egypt?
Well, that was a very logic and human and also social beginning for real change. We were talking for long years about the suffering of those people living in this irregular residential areas, and we have to remember always that they were not just few, they were hundreds, and if I still remember the exact figure, it was about 1,138 slums, yes, which is really, very point of concern for the whole society. We talk about more than probably 50% of the population were living in such places. Yes, probably we did not finish yet from the process from A to Z, but the most dangerous and the most, I would say, problematic slums or areas have already been liquidated so far. And the tens of thousands or probably hundreds of thousands of families have already been deported to a much better places for living, yes, and more human places for living. We talk about Hayy al-Asmarat, we talk, yes, about many other spots. Yes. So from the side of humanity, that was a must. But we still also have other sides that we have to focus on. Probably President Sisi, in this short report that you were just showing on your TV, was talking about one of the most important issues in this concern, which is security and stability. Yes. You cannot talk about stability in our society if you have a big portion of our people are not living in a fair place. Yes. You expect a lot of difficulties and a lot of problems, a lot of crimes. Yes. And if you talk about kids, if you talk about the young generations, they have no future there. If you talk about social and family relations, it's down to the bottom. Well, I have a lot of suffering there. So I have the picture, which is based on sociologists and scientific theories of human sciences, that is telling clearly that you cannot have stable and strong society if you have such poor living conditions in a massive areas in our country. Luckily, yes, this is part of our past today. We have gone far enough in this process. As I said in the beginning, liquidated the most dangerous and the more imminent or threatening spots of this area. They are living today in more human, of course, and much higher positions, yes, for normal living of dignified people, which is something we have to be proud of. And also talking about from the side of security, the side of stability, the side of fighting terrorism, that was a must. It's not just for human reasons. Yes. Even if it was for human reasons, it's okay. It's enough, but it's not only human reasons. We have security, we have fighting terrorism. And if we talk about fighting terrorism, it's not only through the police or the army, it's through, finding conclusive and decisive solutions to the main causes of suffering, yes, and losing hope in our society. On top of this, poverty and living in such poor and impoverished areas. Yes. So it's very complicated picture. If we do not go on this parallel lines of solutions, we will not make tangible, achievement. But yes, luckily we do that today. We go, yes, on many parallel lines at the very same time. One of the probably the historical mistakes of Egyptian governments in the past was they were just relying more on security solutions. Well, security solutions is truly important, but you cannot just rely on it.
Yes.
It doesn't give decisive solutions to any issue. It gives momentum or probably temporary, sedative solutions to some
Yes.
problems, but
Yes.
it doesn't give you the solution that will be giving sustainable,
Yes.
process of
Yes.
continuation or
Yes.
living or stability.
This brings us to a very important point that since President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi came to office 7 years ago, Egypt is witnessing a great achievements, mega projects, national projects. But actually, analysts evaluated very much and praised the transferring of the slums and the informal settlements to, for example, the El Asmarot residents, and said that this would be one of the very important things that is going to be in the history of the achievements of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. How do you read this?
Well, this is truly, or in terms of facts, yes, it's very pure fact. It's very tangible fact on the ground as well. We talk about realities. We do not talk about plans that will take years and years on the ground. We talk about already achievements that now anyone can go there, and many of us have visited a lot of these spots today.
Yes.
And we talk about the material change in terms of everything, in terms of infrastructure in these places, in terms of the apartment or living conditions in new areas, in terms of streets,
Yes.
in terms of facilities that the government have provided in these places like schools, hospitals, clinics, worship houses like mosques and churches. And social places for practicing and sports, etc., etc. So we talk about sort of facilities that is complementary to each other,
Yes.
and a sort of an independent campuses that we see usually in much higher living conditions countries and in European and other stable countries in the world. We dream to have this, of course, expanded everywhere in our country. Yes, it's still a long way to go.
Yeah.
But we have gone to the limit that gives us hope that we are in the right track. We already managed to liquidate the most sizzling and dangerous spots of these slums. We also have a very impressive achievements in terms of making balanced development plans that cover the whole governorates of Egypt, not only focusing on the capital or the main capitals, and we have to remember that for instance,
Yes.
Upper Egypt has for long years was not given the due attention in terms
Yes.
of development plans. Today, of course,
Now the initiative of Decent
initiatives,
Life have started with the Upper
course,
Egypt.
Of course, and adds to the fact that the Upper Egypt governorates today takes the due attention and the due budgetary funds from the government, equally on equal basis with any other governorate in the country. That wasn't the case for a long time ago, which
Yes.
have actually left these places very impoverished in very low living conditions, and also have caused another problem, which is the internal migration from these places to Cairo, to Alexandria, and other bigger cities and
Yes.
more civilized areas in Egypt, which have, of course, contributed to this problem of the highly populated areas like
Yes.
Egypt, like Cairo, like Alexandria,
Yeah.
because of this continuous internal migration from less I would say, less rich areas, or
Yes.
places where poverty is dominant, places where opportunities for employment is much less. So usually they go to other places where they can find more chances or opportunities for work and for living. That have resulted, so the case today in Egypt, that
Yes.
Cairo was over 20 million inhabitants, and that was not supposed to be the case. Today, I think the process that is undergoing today is to make this balance, to take development to everywhere in the country, even to the remotest areas in Egypt. The train of development reaches these areas today. We're not only talking about electricity or water, but we talk about roads, infrastructure, we talk about facilities, communications, we talk about projects, economic projects, productive projects that aim to employ a very large numbers of graduates. So yes, placing these pieces of puzzle together, you will have at the end a panoramic vision of a well-elaborated plan to fight terrorism and to fight poverty also. You need, of course, you need education, you need, and for education you need money. For health conditions and to cure the chronic diseases and others, you need money. So economy is the magic word in a change. We cannot do anything if we don't have enough means economically. So as I said, yes, it's parallel lines and they all go together. And at the end, it's for the benefit of the society. As you mentioned, yes, today we are in a much more stable situation than we were 5 or 6 years or 7 years ago. Of course, with stability, security, but security and stability is not a cheap commodity. It's very expensive. It was not cheap. It didn't come to reality in a very easy process. But there were shuhada, martyrs who were killed, were fighting terrorism. They were brave officers and soldiers from the army and from the police who have done a lot to preserve and safeguard this country, and still doing that on every moment in our life. So yes, as I said, if you put all this together, you will have this sort of society where everyone does his or her task or duty, and from the government side, but also from the society side.
Yes. So, Dr. Ghazawy, also one of the very important initiatives that were launched by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is the Decent Life, which provides a good standard of living for people living in the villages. Education, good suitable houses, all sort of good decent life.
Yes, you put your finger on one of the important issues today about development, which is the Egyptian village. And I would say that the civilization gap between the Egyptian village and cities and towns is really very big.
Yes.
And there must be something to be covering this gap and filling this vacuum. If we're talking about better future, if you talk about real success and stability and enhancing living conditions in this country, we cannot neglect the Egyptian village, because we talk about probably more than 4,500 villages that needed all to be developed. A lot of services they are missing, and we have to remember that the serious and harsh but also promising and positive economic reform program that started in Egypt in 2016 was a signal that from which a lot of process of reforms have taken off, started already, and they will take years, of course, for them to be totally be finished and flourishing and bringing about their full outcomes.
Yes.
But today we can talk about them. We can talk about the already positive fruits of the economic reform program that already we can witness, which is the growth rates, the stable growth rates of the Egyptian economy, taking in account the negative effect of corona epidemic, not
The
only
challenge,
in Egypt.
of
Yeah,
course.
of course, it's really a
The
challenge.
whole world is suffering.
The whole
from
world
it.
is suffering,
Not only
and
Egypt.
the richest countries are very much suffering from that, and of course they were severely affected from this issue.
Yes.
But in Egypt, probably it was, the side effects was to the minimal level so far. With still Egyptian economy is progressing and producing
Yes.
a very acceptable rate of growth on annual basis. We talk about probably 3.1 or 3.2, which is really relatively very high in comparison to the countries in the region, even the Gulf countries. Some of them, and probably most of them, they have negative ratio
Yes.
this year because of corona. So yes, the Egyptian village deserves to be a point of attention for the coming years.
Yes.
And I have to say it's not an easy task. And I have to say also that the Egyptians who are living in villages, they suffered a lot, and they paid probably extra bill of the underdeveloping of this country for a long time. Today, I think that was really a successful move from the president to undertake this promising project. And I think this is one of the projects that really will be listed as very noble and honorable in the history,
Yes.
in the history of our recent Egypt today, upgrading, developing Egyptian village.
Yeah, the new government.
Yeah, of course, because it's not an easy task, as I said. You are not talking about one city or one village. You talk about like a complete country. You talk
Yes.
about 4,500 villages between small, tiny, and little and big villages.
Yes.
You talk about probably more than 40 million inhabitants are living in these villages. So it's like big state of itself, big country.
Yes, around 53 millions are going to benefit from this
Yeah.
initiative.
Yeah, of course.
So if we go more closer or go to more details concerning the Decent Life Initiative by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, we can see that under the directives of the President al-Sisi, he gave his directives to build in the governorates, the other governorates, build complexes for the services for the citizens, and also digitalizing these complex or buildings that is going to provide services for the citizens. So how do you read this as the President is trying to make the villages resembles the services that we can find in the capital?
Well, that was really an important issue, and it will take some time to fully flourish and achieve its goals. But it was really needed to be started as soon as possible. And as I mentioned in the previous or the last minutes, when we talk about the rural areas. And the comparison with urban areas in Egypt, yes, we need to make what you just said, this sort of balance in terms of services, in terms of access, in terms of availability,
Yes.
in terms of quality. Okay.
Yes.
So yes. By the way, this all involves a huge amount of money and funds.
Yeah.
And we have to tell that since President Sisi came to office, and he undertakes such huge mega projects with that involve huge amount of money, and for those people who are asking about loans came to Egypt today to build productive projects, because of course within 1 or 2 years such projects will be a very rich sources of income, of revenues. Previously, we have talked about also some historical background of these issues, where loans were taken just to be directed to subsidies and to food, which was a historical mistake that we so far today and until today we pay for that.
Yes.
Today, no, it's productive projects. It's an eye-opening for and hope creation industry for generations of young generations, for millions of workers in Egypt that today are working on permanent basis, with a lot of work opportunities are opened every day with each and every mega project of those on the ground that involves tens of thousands of opportunities for Egyptians to work, which will mean significantly upgrading their living conditions, which means significantly, you know, stifling the potentials for terrorism and crimes.
Yes.
Simply because if you are giving hopes to a man, if you are keeping him busy with a work that is rewarding for him, and can he create a family and he can build his life on, he would not resort to terrorism. He would not resort to crimes or whatever. He will be very much keen to protect his hope and to make this hope even larger and bigger. Of course, on the same direction, if we talk about the micro enterprises, that was also, you know, a take-off point for tens of thousands of Egyptian young generations, men or women, or boys and girls, after graduation, which have given them, you know, an alternative for the governmental work. Instead of being an employee of the government, no, they can start their own projects. They can start their own business, no matter how tiny it is, because that's how things go. You start with little, and with success one step, and after another, you become, or you get succeed more day after day.
Yes.
So a lot of achievements were done in that. And probably you talk about more than 20 Egyptian billion Egyptian pounds, which is really productive initiative from its side.
Yes, I thank you very much for your time and for your valuable information, Dr. Ibrahim Ghazawy, the international relations expert, professor of international law. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I leave you with other segments in the Breakfast Show.